So I'll take a step back and maybe refer to it as not necessarily getting it wrong, but more of a predicament that a lot of brands find themselves in. And this is part of what we were able to discuss today during the RLC, which is the fact that a lot of brands usually have a lot of high expectations when the new technology is brought into the scene. But during that time of very high expectations, the technology might still not be performing to the level of that expectations, because there's usually a time required for adjustment when it comes to people, when it comes to workflows, and when it comes to systems. And human behavior usually starts with very high expectations, but then by the time that the technology has evolved and quite rapidly, they find themselves not able to catch up with it because they haven't prepared or they haven't set up. So we've plotted it along a J curve today, and we've described it as two zones: a disappointment zone, where the technology is there, but the expectation is quite high and it's not performing to the level of that expectation. And then the second zone, which is the catch-up zone. And what I find today with a lot of brands is because they found themselves early on in a disappointment zone, today they are finding themselves in the catch-up zone. We use a lot of examples about AI. We made it a point today. As a company, we have a lot of innovation being released almost on a weekly basis. But we made it a point this RLC not to share what's latest, but to actually share what we implemented in market a year ago, and use some examples of something that is not necessarily new, but has been in the market, and ask the question of whether adoption actually beats innovation today. So we've given examples from regional and local partners from the kingdom, like Nice One, like Al Shaya Group, specifically with American Eagle, who have tapped into and adopted technologies that we talked about in the last RLC, and what kind of the results are they seeing with them. Some of these examples include, for example, tapping into our image to video feature on TikTok Symphony, where retail brands today operate catalogs that have thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of SKUs. So they're able to tap into this image to video technology, upload their catalogs, turn all of the images in their catalogs into native videos that they can run on a platform like TikTok to great results and at zero production cost. So this is an example of early adoption and how it pays out. Another example from Al Shaya Group was how they tapped into our digital avatars feature, but not to drive innovation for the sake of innovation, but to solve a job to be done. So in the case of American Eagle, they also have hundreds of SKUs, of fashion SKUs, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to go out and do production costs, especially if the brand is a franchise brand, for all of these different SKUs. You're not going to know how they're going to perform. So what they did is they've uploaded the digital avatar on TikTok Symphony. They've dressed her up with a click of a button with all of these different SKUs. And then they've let the algorithm decide and optimize on the go while the campaign is live, which creative asset should reach which target audience, and optimize accordingly. So these are a couple of examples, but essentially the message we're driving is not only with us, but across the industry, across platforms, there's a lot of innovation being released. And we have to be cognizant about our human behavior and the expectations we have. And the best advice we can give is adoption, like adoption today, adoption immediately, beyond waiting for the technology to be perfect, because this is how you find yourself not playing catch up later on and not being in survival mode. Really, it's one of the leading, if not the most leading forum within our region, driving the intersection of different partners across different industries, all under the umbrella of commerce, but bringing thought leadership to life. So no one comes to RLC for a hard sell. That's why we're always like preparing well in advance what is the message we want to drive at RLC, because we don't come here to sell a specific message, but we come here to engage with other thought leaders when it comes to what's the most innovative thinking, what is the latest, how can we all benefit from one another when it comes to really thought leadership. So we believe it's one of the leading platforms when it comes to thought leadership, and there's always a very high caliber of engagements and a very high caliber of networking that we find ourselves very privileged to benefit from at a forum like RLC.